What if I told you that the very thing you fear most, the emptiness you run from every time you reach for your phone or turn on the television or fill your calendar with endless activities, is actually the medicine your exhausted mind has been desperately seeking? I know this sounds impossible in a world that has taught you to be productive every moment, to optimize every hour, to treat stillness like a disease that must be cured with constant stimulation. But I am here, an old Taoist monk who has spent countless hours sitting beneath pine trees watching clouds drift across empty sky, to share an ancient truth that modern life has forgotten. Doing nothing is not laziness. It is the highest form of wisdom. Boredom is not your enemy, it is your healer. This is not a mental trick or a philosophy for lazy people. This is the natural law that governs the stars and the trees and the flowing water. Lao Tzu wrote in the Tao Te Ching that we put 30 spokes together and call it a wheel, but it is the space where there is nothing that makes it useful. We hammer wood for a house, but it is the inner space that makes it livable. In the same way, your mind's greatest power comes not from filling every moment with activity, but from creating space, from allowing the emptiness that modern people call boredom to work its ancient magic on your fractured consciousness. Right now, I invite you to take the first step on this path by leaving a simple phrase in the comments below, a declaration that you are ready to stop running. I welcome the healing stillness. Write these words not for me, but as a promise to yourself that you will no longer treat emptiness as your enemy, but as the gateway to the peace you have been seeking in all the wrong places. Let me share something I have observed in my many years watching the world become faster and louder and more desperate. People today are terrified of boredom the way ancient humans were terrified of predators in the darkness. At the moment you have nothing to do, your hand reaches automatically for a device to fill the gap. You sit in a waiting room and immediately pull out your phone to scroll through images of other people's lives. You lie in bed at night and watch videos until your eyes burn, because the silence of your own mind feels unbearable. You schedule your days so full that there is no moment left unaccounted for, no space where you might accidentally encounter yourself in the emptiness. This is the disease of our time. This addiction to constant stimulation, this belief that if you are not doing something productive or entertaining every single moment, you are wasting your precious life. But watch the mountain with me for a moment. Does it do anything? It simply stands year after year, century after century, doing nothing at all by your standards, and yet it accomplishes everything. The snow melts on its peak and becomes the river that feeds the valley. The trees grow on its slopes and give oxygen to the world. The birds nest in its crevices and sing songs that have never been sung before. All of this happens not because the mountain tries to be productive, but because it knows how to do nothing, how to simply be, and in that being everything necessary unfolds naturally. When you run from boredom, when you fill every gap with noise and distraction, you create a different kind of suffering, a deeper exhaustion that no amount of entertainment can cure. Your mind becomes like a pond that is constantly stirred, the water murky and troubled, never settling long enough to become clear and reflect the moon. In ancient times, before the world invented 1,000 ways to avoid yourself, the Taoist sages made a remarkable discovery through patient observation of nature and the human condition. Lao Tzu, the old master whose wisdom formed the foundation of the Taoist way, noticed that all of nature operates through a principle he called Wu Wei, which means action without forcing, accomplishment without striving, doing everything by doing nothing in the conventional sense. The river does not work hard to reach the ocean. It simply follows the path of least resistance, flowing around obstacles, resting in still pools when the land creates space for stillness, moving again when the slope returns. In its patient meandering, doing nothing that looks like achievement, it carves the Grand Canyon over millions of years. The seed does not strain and struggle to become a tree. It simply rests in the darkness of the earth, doing nothing visible, and yet in that doing nothing, roots push down and shoots push up, and eventually a mighty oak stands where once there was only empty space. Even the Tao itself, the mysterious source of all existence, creates 10,000 things without effort, gives life to everything without demanding recognition, accomplishes the greatest works while doing absolutely nothing that humans would call work. This is the teaching that has been lost in your modern rush. Chuang Tzu, another ancient sage who understood the way deeply, told a story about a farmer who was so busy trying to help his crops grow faster that he went out each day and pulled on the shoots to make them taller. He worked very hard at this, and at the end of the day he was exhausted from all his helpful doing. But when he returned the next morning, All his plants were dead because he had disrupted their natural process with his meddling productivity. This is what you do to yourself when you cannot tolerate boredom, when you must fill every moment with activity. You pull on your own shoots, exhausting yourself with constant stimulation while preventing the deep healing that can only happen in the empty spaces you are so afraid to enter. Come deeper into the forest with me now, where the lessons of nature become even more clear and the path to healing reveals itself in the behavior of water and wind and growing things. Have you ever watched a tree in winter? It does absolutely nothing. The leaves have fallen, the sap has retreated into the roots, and to the hurried eye of modern people, the tree looks dead, unproductive, wasting time. But the tree is not wasting anything. It is doing the deepest work of all, the work that happens only in stillness and apparent boredom. In the emptiness of winter doing nothing, the tree is healing from the effort of spring growth and summer abundance. It is gathering energy deep in its roots. It is preparing for the explosion of life that will come when warmth returns. Without this period of doing nothing, without this boredom that looks like death to the impatient observer, there would be no blossoms in spring, no fruit in summer, no acorns to plant new forests. The tree knows what you have forgotten. Rest is not the opposite of productivity, it is the source of it. Emptiness is not the absence of life, it is the womb where new life gestates before birth. The same lesson appears in the behavior of water in winter. When the temperature drops, water does something that seems completely unproductive. It stops flowing. It becomes ice, still and silent and apparently lifeless. But in that frozen stillness, that state of perfect boredom where nothing seems to be happening, the water is protecting itself, preserving its essence, waiting for the right moment to flow again. And when spring comes and the ice melts, the water does not rush frantically to make up for lost time. It flows at exactly the pace the land requires, sometimes fast over waterfalls, sometimes slow through meadows, sometimes pooling in perfect stillness in mountain lakes where it does nothing but reflect the sky. This is Wu Wei in its purest form, the art of doing nothing at the right time, of allowing boredom to be the space where healing happens naturally without force or schedule or anxious productivity. Now I want to guide you into the practice itself, the ancient Taoist method we call Zuo Wang, which means sitting and forgetting, though you need not sit in any formal way to begin experiencing its healing power. The practice is simple, almost embarrassingly simple to the modern mind that expects transformation to require complex techniques and expensive tools. Today, I invite you to do nothing for just 10 minutes. Not meditation with a goal, not mindfulness with a purpose, not relaxation technique with expected results. Simply sit or lie down in a quiet place and do absolutely nothing. Allow yourself to be bored. When the urge comes to check your phone, notice it and do nothing about it. When your mind says you should be productive, thank it for its concern and continue doing nothing. When boredom rises like an uncomfortable wave in your chest, do not run from it. Stay, breathe, feel it fully. This is where the healing begins, in your willingness to stop running from the emptiness. In the Taoist tradition, we understand that the mind is like muddy water. When you are constantly doing something, constantly stimulating yourself with activity and entertainment, you are stirring that water, keeping it perpetually cloudy and troubled. But when you allow yourself to do nothing, to be genuinely bored without reaching for distraction, something miraculous happens. The mud begins to settle naturally, the water starts to clear, and in that clarity which you did not force or achieve but simply allowed, you begin to see all the way to the bottom where truth rests patiently, waiting for the stillness it needs to be visible. Ask yourself this powerful question during your 10 minutes of doing nothing. What happens if I just let myself be bored right now without fixing it? Do not answer with your thinking mind. Simply hold the question like holding a smooth stone, and notice what arises in the space of genuine emptiness. Some ancient part of you, the part that remembers the way before you were taught to fear stillness, will begin to speak in the language of feeling and knowing rather than words and analysis. As you continue this practice of allowing boredom, of doing nothing without guilt or anxiety, you will begin noticing profound changes in your mental and emotional landscape. Changes that happen not because you worked hard for them, but because you finally stopped working and allowed natural healing to occur. The first sign will be a feeling of spaciousness inside your mind, as if someone has opened all the windows in a stuffy room and fresh air is pouring in. This spaciousness is not emptiness in the sense of lacking something, but emptiness in the sense of having room for something real to enter. When you stop filling every moment with distraction and activity, You create space for your own thoughts and feelings to surface, including the ones you have been running from. And at first, this might feel uncomfortable, even painful, as old griefs and worries and unprocessed experiences bubble up from the depths where you buried them under layers of busyness. But this surfacing is the healing. The wound must be exposed to air before it can close cleanly. The second sign of harmony returning is a dramatic decrease in your anxiety level. You will notice that much of what you called anxiety was actually the exhaustion of running from boredom, the constant vigilance required to keep yourself stimulated every moment. When you stop running and allow yourself to simply be bored, to do nothing, that particular form of anxiety dissolves like morning mist when the sun rises. You discover that boredom itself is not uncomfortable once you stop fighting it. It is the resistance to boredom, the belief that you must escape it immediately, that creates the suffering. The third sign is a return of creativity and clarity that you thought you had lost. In the empty spaces of boredom, when your mind is not filled with other people's content and constant stimulation, your own ideas begin to emerge like shy forest animals approaching a clearing. The solutions to problems you have been struggling with suddenly appear, not because you thought harder about them, but because you stopped thinking and allowed the deeper intelligence to work in the stillness. The ancient Taoists called this state Mushin, the mind of no mind, and they understood that it is the most fertile ground for wisdom and inspiration. The transformation continues deepening as you make the art of doing nothing a regular practice rather than a one-time experiment. You begin to understand at a bone-deep level what Lao Tzu meant when he said that the Tao does nothing, and yet nothing is left undone. This is the great paradox that can only be understood through direct experience, not through intellectual analysis. When you allow yourself regular periods of genuine boredom, of doing nothing without trying to get anything from it, you discover that you actually accomplish more of what truly matters. Not more busy work or more consumption of entertainment, but more of the real work of being human, healing old wounds, connecting authentically with others, creating beauty, living in alignment with your deepest values. This happens because doing nothing clears away all the false activity that was blocking your natural flow. You also begin to notice that boredom is actually many different states, not one monolithic experience. There is the restless boredom that comes when you are avoiding something important, which is asking you to pay attention to what you are running from. There is the peaceful boredom that comes when you have completed necessary work and can rest, which is teaching you about healthy rhythms of exertion and recovery. There is the creative boredom that comes when your mind is searching for new patterns and possibilities, which is the womb of innovation and art. There is the spiritual boredom that comes when you are outgrowing old patterns and beliefs, which is inviting you into a larger understanding of yourself and reality. By learning to be present with boredom instead of immediately medicating it with distraction, you become fluent in these different languages, able to hear what each type of emptiness is trying to teach you. The ancient sages lived this way, spending hours and days doing nothing that would look productive to hurried eyes. But in that doing nothing, they achieved a clarity and wisdom that changed the course of human understanding. They were not special or gifted with abilities you lack. They simply knew something you are now remembering, that the cure for the exhausted, overstimulated, anxious modern mind is not more activity or better techniques, but the simple willingness to do nothing and let boredom work its healing magic. As we come to the end of our time together today, I want to leave you with a final image that captures the essence of this ancient teaching. Imagine a monk sitting beside a still pond in early morning, doing absolutely nothing. To a person hurried and busy walking past, the monk might look lazy, unproductive, wasting time. But look closer at what is actually happening. The monk's stillness, his doing nothing, allows the surface of the pond to become perfectly calm. In that calm surface, the entire universe is reflected. The sky with its drifting clouds, the mountains in the distance, the trees along the shore, even the walker hurrying past on important business. The pond, by doing nothing except being still, accomplishes something the walker cannot. It shows reality exactly as it is, undistorted by ripples of constant activity. The monk, by doing nothing except sitting in boredom without resistance, accomplishes something the busy person cannot. He sees clearly into the nature of things. He rests deeply in the Tao. He heals from the thousand small wounds that accumulate in a life of constant doing. This is not passivity or laziness. This is the highest form of action, the most productive use of time, the art that takes a lifetime to master. You are this pond. and your mind is meant to be this still surface capable of reflecting truth. But you can only fulfill this purpose when you stop disturbing your own waters with constant activity, when you allow yourself to be genuinely bored without immediately filling the space. Today, I invite you to practice the art of doing nothing even just once. Set aside 10 minutes where you will not scroll, not watch, not listen, not read, not plan, not solve, not improve. Simply sit and allow boredom to be present without trying to escape it. Notice what happens in that empty space. Feel the healing that begins when you stop medicating the medicine. Return here and share your experience by leaving that simple phrase, "I welcome the healing stillness." If this ancient wisdom resonates with something deep in your bones that remembers what your mind has forgotten, I invite you to continue walking this path with me by joining this channel. Together we will explore the way of water and mountains and the profound power of doing nothing in a world addicted to constant doing. Remember this always: the valley is useful because it is empty. The cup serves because it contains space. Your mind heals not when you fill it with more content, but when you allow it to be empty, to be bored, to rest in the natural stillness from which all real wisdom flows. The sage accomplishes great things by doing nothing. The wise person heals deeply by allowing boredom its rightful place. Follow the way of winter trees and frozen lakes and idle clouds, and discover that what you have been calling boredom is actually the doorway to everything real and true and alive. Go now in peace, carrying the permission to do nothing like a precious gift, and trust that in your stillness the Tao will accomplish through you what all your anxious activity never could. The mountain does nothing, and everything is achieved. Be like the mountain today, and let boredom heal what busyness has broken.